Good morning, everyone. Hello. Welcome to the Nova Scotia Emancipation Day Commemoration Ceremony. I'm Portia Clark. I'm the host of Information Morning on CBC Radio, and I'm going to be your MC this morning. I'm honored to be here with all of you on this important day in our shared history. Please rise if you're able for the entrance of His Honor Arthur J. LeBlanc, Lieutenant Governor of Nova Scotia, and Mrs. Patsy LeBlanc. Please be seated. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're in Mi'kma'ki, the traditional and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and also to acknowledge that people of African descent have been in Nova Scotia for more than 400 years, and we honor and offer gratitude to those ancestors of African descent who came before us to this land. And right now, I'd like to welcome award-winning musician and artist Owen O. Sound Lee. He's going to share our national anthem, O Canada, followed by the Black national anthem, Lift Every Voice. Please stand if you're able.
Our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and
Thank you, Owen. That was beautiful. And thank you to the I Move drummers as well, who did a great job welcoming us this morning. Again, welcome to this Emancipation Day ceremony. It was on this day in 1834 that the Slavery Abolition Act became law in the British Empire, including Canada, and ended the practice of slavery for millions of African people and their descendants around the world in Canada. The act became law on this day 190 years ago. Families who, generations going back, had seen their lives and their people born into and die enslaved. Today we are commemorating. And today we as a community stand with our friends of Africville following the events of this past weekend. Our thoughts and our prayers are with those who were affected, and as we try to understand the cause and consequences of those actions. Before we begin our program this morning, we have a few housekeeping items to share. In case of an emergency, such as a fire alarm on site, this tent is our muster station, so don't go anywhere, stay here. If you're already here, if an alarm were to go off during the lunch reception, for example, behind us. I also want to say hello to those who are joining us via live stream. Hello to you and welcome. We have this broadcast this morning for everyone who wants to take part and can't be here with us. It's fine to take photos or videos during this ceremony. We're working towards a bit of a deadline. We want to be finished well before we're interrupted by the noon cannon when it goes off. I think we can manage that. At this time, I'd like to welcome His Worship Mike Savage, the Mayor of Halifax, to come forward with some official remarks. Welcome, Mayor Savage.
Thank you, Portia. Merci beaucoup. Good morning. Bonjour à tous, Gway and Jalazi. Your Honors, Premier Houston, Ministers, MLAs, Member of Parliament, Lena Diab, Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard. We kicked off our Emancipation Day ceremonies at HRM on Tuesday, and Senator brought forward some really good remarks on the history of Emancipation Day and the work that she's been doing. Community leaders, there's so many folks who are here. I want to acknowledge my Deputy Mayor, the amazing, the unstoppable, Kathy Daigle-Gammon from Fall River. Love to have you here. And there's so many people here, including O-Sound. Pretty good, right? I mean, we had this guy in Edmonton when we were promoting the Juno Awards, and he just blew everybody away. So thank you, and to the drummers. It is good to be here, and I want to acknowledge the land that we're on is the unceded land of the Mi'kmaq people, and this is Mi'kma'ki, and I acknowledge and ask all here to acknowledge that we are, in fact, treaty people, subject to the Peace and Friendship Treaty signed in this territory, and it was in peace and friendship. You know, the Mi'kmaq have been here for a long time, stewards of the land and stewards of the air, and it's important that we understand the importance of that acknowledgement from those of us that came much later. I also acknowledge the struggles, the resilience, and the contributions that people of African ancestry have made and continue to make in this municipality. In many ways, Nova Scotia is the birthplace of the African presence in Canada, and this fortress played an important role. Part of this fortress was built by slaves, approximately 600 Maroons in 1796. So this very place where we celebrate Emancipation Day was in part built by slaves. So we have to acknowledge that. While we enjoy the surroundings and the history, let's never forget the lessons. We've become more attuned to the real lessons of history, lessons that can only be learned by telling the whole story. And you know, if you Google Emancipation Day, you will see that slavery was abolished dozens of times before Emancipation Day in many states, in many jurisdictions. The simple passing of an act is important, but it doesn't mean that slavery was ever abolished. And here in a city, in a community where we have a history of systemic racism proven over the years, it's really important that we don't just come together on August the 1st and acknowledge Emancipation Day, but that we actually recognize and deliver on that. So this day does serve as an annual opportunity to acknowledge that people of African heritage were enslaved in this country and indeed in this city. Commemorating this history is one way of better understanding the seeds of racism, and that continues to inform the work that our African Nova Scotia communities do to build a better future. So I want to thank a number of people who've worked hard. The Black Cultural Centre for Nova Scotia, Parks Canada, the Canadian Museum of Immigration at Pier 21, the Office of African Nova Scotian Affairs, Halifax Regional Municipality. Tracy Jones Grant is here. Earlier this week, we heard that she's done 50 years of work in about 8 years on the job. Tracy, thank you. And in addition to the unveiling of the plaque, take in some of the other events, the Enslavement of Black People exhibition at Pier 21, the Emancipation Day Roundtable at the Black Cultural Centre. It's a signal of some of the progress that we've made, but even more, it's a beacon of the work that we all have to do together.
Thank you, Mayor Savage. It's prayer.
And brothers, this prayer that I will offer this morning was written in collaboration with Cacique Khan, the indigenous leader in Jamaica from the time Marcia Kim Douglas, Colonel of the Charlestown Maroons. Let us pray. Gracious God, you have accompanied from Nova Scotia to Sierra Leone and many other places besides. We remember our Taino ancestors who called Cacique Huaru, Ameru, Kaimanek, and the legacy passed on to Cacique Kaiman. We're thankful by our indigenous brothers and sisters, a vision of the meeting of the eagle, the hummingbird. We remember ancestors in Mother Africa who knew you, Creator, by names such as Jinyami, Yahweh, Allah. We remember enslaved Africans who arrived in Nova Scotia with their own understanding of God and an experience of suffering and resilience which shaped that understanding of all those who were enslaved and displaced. Ancestors who hailed God as Yenkipong, Kojo, Kwau, Akompong. We recognize the communities they built and the legacy that now continues through Douglas of Charlestown, Sterling of Moortown, Curry of Akompong, Latibaudiere of Scots Hall, we remember Montague James, Leonard Parkinson, and other Maroons deported to Nova Scotia at the end of the 18th century. We remember African freedom fighters in Nova Scotia and in Jamaica, Taki, Sam Sharp, and many who are not named at this time. We heed their knowledge that only God is God, Masa Gada God. We embrace the legacy and the responsibility to yield to no other and to yield to nothing that would seek to enslave us once again. Following their example, may we work in this place for truth and reconciliation among all our relations. May we do our part to advance the welfare of the whole human race. And it is so.
Thank you, Reverend Lewis, for bringing our ancestors into this gathering today and leaving with us a message of hope. We're pleased to have with us today, this morning, His Honor, Arthur J. LeBlanc, the Lieutenant Governor of Nova Scotia, to deliver some remarks on this important day as well. Welcome and thanks kindly for being here, Your Honor.
Well, good morning, Premier Houston, Minister Gross, Senator Thomas Bernard, Ms. Linda Medlish-Diab, other provincial members of the legislature, Mayor Savage, and members of the Municipal Council. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen and friends, good morning, and bonjour, quoi. As the King's representative in Nova Scotia, I join you to mark Emancipation Day in Canada. Today we recognize the anniversary of the abolition of slavery in the British Empire, of the transatlantic slave trade. À titre de représentant du roi en Nouvelle-Écosse, c'est pour moi un honneur d'être à votre compagnie aujourd'hui, nous marquant l'anniversaire de l'abolition de l'esclavage dans l'Empire britannique. Et nous reconnaissons les tragédies engendrées par la traite des esclaves entre l'Amérique et l'Europe. Emancipation Day commemorates the momentous occasion on August 1st, 1834, when the Slavery Abolition Act ended the enslavement of African people across the British Empire. Today, we reflect on the painful legacy of anti-Black racism and the lasting impacts of slavery. We also celebrate the strength and the endurance and the resilience of the people of African descent, who advocated for systemic changes that made the abolition of slavery possible. As we reflect on the significance of Emancipation Day, we recognize that the struggle for equality and justice did not end in 1834. The legacy of enslavement and its trauma is felt by people of African descent in Nova Scotia through systemic inequalities, racial discrimination, and marginalization. It is the collective responsibility of all Nova Scotians, both present and future, to acknowledge these inequities and contribute to communities structured on equality, access, and opportunities for all residents. Today, the province renews its commitment to support and uplift one another, to listen and learn, and to stand against injustice in all its forms. We also celebrate the achievements and contributions of people of African descent and African Nova Scotians. From the arts to politics, education to business, people of African descent and African Nova Scotians have enriched our province and country. We wouldn't be here today without the leadership of Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard, who was instrumental in achieving federal recognition of Emancipation Day in Canada. We also celebrate the work of Professor Sylvia D. Hamilton, who was inducted in the Order of Canada in June, and also to the Order of Nova Scotia last year, for capturing and preserving the experiences of African Nova Scotians through documentaries, journalism, and poetry. Emancipation Day is an opportunity for reflection, education, and understanding of our shared history, recognizing and celebrating the immense resilience and contributions of people of African descent, challenges systemic inequalities, and awareness of the legacies of enslavement and the need for reconciliation help foster a collective commitment to challenge and dismantle the structures, the very structures that perpetuate discrimination and inequality. La journée de l'émancipation est une occasion de réflexion, d'étude et de compréhension de notre histoire commune. Reconnaître et célébrer l'immense résilience et les contributions des personnes d'ascendance africaine remet en question les inégalités systémiques, une prise de conscience des héritages de l'esclavage et de la nécessité de réconciliation contribue à favoriser un engagement collectif pour défier et démanteler les structures qui perpétuent la discrimination et l'inégalité. Patsy and I would like to thank the event organizers, along with the dedicated individuals at the African Nova Scotian Affairs and the Black Cultural Center for Nova Scotia, Mr. Gross, who give tirelessly of their time, year in, year out. Your ongoing dedication is greatly appreciated. And as the late, great Nelson Mandela once said, no one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate. And if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. Thank you. Merci. Valeria.
Thank you very much, His Honor Arthur J. LeBlanc. As has been mentioned, it's the third year that Emancipation Day has been officially recognized in Canada. Our province is home to more than 52 historic Black communities that have origins that go back well over 400 years, and still here, and still thriving. This morning we're joined by the Honourable Twyla Gross. She's the Minister of African Nova Scotian Affairs and the Minister of Public Service Commission, and proudly from one of those historic Black communities, Cherry Brook. Minister Gross is here with her thoughts on this occasion. Please welcome her.
Lieutenant Governor, the Honorable Arthur J. LeBlanc, Premier Tim Houston, Mayor Mike Savage, Member of Parliament Lena Metlich Diab, Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard, Jamaican High Commissioner Marcia Kaur Laban, and esteemed guest. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your presence and commitment to our community. Emancipation Day is a day of profound significance. It is a day when we not only remember the abolition of slavery, but also celebrate the resilience, strength, and achievements of African Nova Scotians. Our ancestors endured unimaginable hardships, yet they persisted, paving the way for future generations. Their spirit, resilience, and hope has brought us to where we are today. It is our duty to continue their legacy by striving for justice and equality in all aspects of society. We, African Nova Scotians, are descendants of Bantu, Yoruba, Zulu, Gay, Ashanti, Maroons. More than 15 million of them were sold into slavery. Many millions died on the way to the slave ships or during their journey to North America. Still today, millions of Africans suffer from the impacts of slavery, from the historic devastation it brought to the continent, and not to forget the present exploitation by modern slavery. Our journeys that have brought us here today to Mi'kma'ki are marked by individual destinies that have left their marks through generations. It is important that we preserve, respect, and remember the stories of our ancestors, the scars they have left behind, the strength they embody, the hope they provide, and the opportunity they bring for mutual understanding and respect. Emancipation Day is not just another day on our calendars for remembrance. It is a call to action, reminding us that those dark times of inhumane oppression must never be repeated. That Black lives, of course, matter. Let us stand together in solidarity, united by our shared history and our shared vision for a better future. Let us celebrate Emancipation Day with the dignity and the unity it deserves, not only today, but every day. Happy Emancipation Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Gross. Yes, today and every day. You have us fired up. At this time, I welcome the Premier of Nova Scotia, the Honourable Tim Houston, to share the provincial proclamation with us. Welcome, Premier.
Thank you, Portia. Good morning, everyone. His Honor, Her Honor, Senator, Minister, His Worship, High Commissioner, Reverend, each of you, and other dignitaries. Thank you for being here with us today. It's certainly my pleasure to stand here with you as we mark Emancipation Day in Nova Scotia and around the world. I want to thank Minister Gross for that amazing story there. I could listen to her all day. The first female Black minister for ANSA in Nova Scotia. She's doing a great job. I reach to her quite often with ideas and thoughts, and sometimes she says, "You know, Premier, I don't think so." But sometimes she says, "You know, Premier, that's a good idea." So, but thank you, Minister Gross, for your service. It's important that we're together to acknowledge our history and Nova Scotia's part in that history, and that we educate the next generation so we can continue to learn from it as we continue to move forward. It's our shared responsibility to work together to address anti-Black racism and all forms of racism here in Nova Scotia, but certainly around the world, so that everyone can thrive. So I'll now read the proclamation. Proclamation, National Emancipation Day. Whereas we commemorate the enactment of the Slavery Abolition Act, sorry folks, which took effect 190 years ago in 1834, marking a significant milestone in the fight against enslavement. And whereas Nova Scotia is a province enriched by the profound histories and enduring legacies of its African Nova Scotia communities, including the Jamaican Maroons, whose strength, resilience, and cultural traditions have profoundly shaped our societal fabric. And whereas Emancipation Day provides a vital opportunity to educate and engage all citizens in dialogue and learning about the history of African Nova Scotians and the impacts of slavery and the ongoing fight against racial injustice. Therefore, I, Tim Houston, Premier of Nova Scotia, do hereby proclaim August 1st, 2024, to be National Emancipation Day in the province of Nova Scotia. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Premier. Emancipation Day is important and no small achievement. It allows us as Canadians, as Nova Scotians, to talk about what happened and what is still happening, to have open discussions about our shared history and the enslavement of people of African ancestry here in Canada, here in this province. And one of those discussions is going to take place a little bit later today at 4 o'clock at the Black Cultural Centre, who we want to recognize has done so much to bring this event to us today and has had such an influence on education about our history here in Nova Scotia in general. Thank you. Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard will be there as part of that discussion at 4 o'clock. She championed the official recognition of Emancipation Day in Canada tirelessly, with passion and vision, so inspiring. And she helped achieve that back in 2021, which is part of why we're here together this morning. To share a few remarks, please welcome her, Senator Bernard.
Thank you very much, Portia, Your Honors, Your Excellency, all dignitaries. You've all been recognized, so I'm going to save my time. I want to say how wonderful it is to actually look at the audience that's gathered here. I better stick to my notes, though, because we're on a tight time frame. What an honor and a privilege it is to be here with you today, to be part of this historical moment. This recognition is a fitting tribute to the legacy of the Jamaican Maroons and their contributions to Nova Scotia and Canada. All of those with Jamaican heritage, please raise your hands. Give us a little wave. Yes, yes, yes. We are still here. We are still here. So I want to say thank you for using this moment in time, 190 years post the passing of the act to abolish slavery, and to tell Nova Scotia and the rest of Canada about the powerful story of the history and the legacy of the Jamaican Maroons, which dates back to This will be a very public reminder of their history, of their fight for freedom, their history of resistance, their legacy of survival against the odds. When I think of the Jamaican Maroons and their legacy, of their fight for freedom and their fight for rights. And now we will have this very sacred space, this physical space, sit and reflect on their many contributions to helping to build Nova Scotia. And so today, as we Emancipation Day, we remember the past. We remember. We remember the present. We remember the present, including the violence that disrupted the Africville reunion last weekend. But let us carry the strength of the Maroons in our spirits as we face a very uncertain future with determination to keep going, to keep building, to leave this place better for future generations. When I imagine what they encountered, that gives me strength. It gives me strength to keep going, strength to stay in the struggle. And when I imagine how they survived, and I imagine the work that people are doing today, I am filled with critical hope. And today I want to throw some of that hope out to you who are here and those who are watching. This is our time. Our lives matter. This is our time. Emancipation Day 2024. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Senator Bernard, for that and everything. This is the day we recognize our country, a reminder of past history. May we all continue to defend our freedoms and use our voices, as Senator Bernard and so many others have, to push for greater liberty and opportunity. We're focused on emancipation today and our journey to it, and we've reached the part in the program now where we'll commemorate the national historic significance of the Jamaican Maroons in this province with a special plaque unveiling ceremony. Through the Parks National Program of Historical Commemoration, Parks Canada works with partners across Canada's history, including the more difficult moments in our collective past. Since 1919, the Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada provide advice to the Government of Canada through the Minister of Environment and Climate Change on the designation of places, persons, and events that have marked and shaped Canada. And every year, new subjects. We are commemorating the Jamaican Maroons. Representing the Government of Canada, I'd like to welcome Halifax West Member of Parliament, the Honourable Lena Metledge-Diab, to come forward and bring remarks. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Bonjour à tous et à toutes. Your Honors, Premier, Mayor, Minister, Senators, there's a few of you here in the room. Merci pour être ici avec nous ce matin. Council members, High Commissioner, all distinguished guests. I'm sure I missed many, but they've been all mentioned or will be mentioned. So good morning, members of the legislature, of course, and members of the council. So I want to start by recognizing that we are on the unceded traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and this land is covered by the historic treaties of peace and friendship, air, and the water. And it's only by working this land. It's a great pleasure for me to be here with you at Halifax Citadel National Historic Site, a significant site in the history of Halifax and Canada, and a valued part of our community today. Today we officially welcome the Jamaican Maroons in Nova Scotia to Canada's family of places, persons, and events. The Jamaican Maroons were formerly enslaved peoples of African ancestry, and their families who had been living independently in Jamaica. Then, in 1796, after the second and final Maroon War, more than 500 Maroons from Trelawani town in the mountains of northwestern Jamaica were forcibly transported to the British colony of Nova Scotia. While in Nova Scotia, the Maroons were met with harsh conditions and pressures to give up their traditional spiritual and cultural practices, both of which eventually led to their petitioning to and eventual freedom to leave Nova Scotia in 1800, and most did. During their time in the colony, their labor contributed to a variety of projects. One was building the foundations for the governor's house. Another one brings us here today, and that is the construction here on Citadel Hill. More specifically, the Northwest Bastion, or Maroon Bastion, as it is informally called. While the third citadel has since been replaced by the fourth, the one we are standing in, the foundations are the same ones laid by the Maroons and can be seen here today. This is why Halifax Citadel National Historic Site was chosen as the location for the Commemoration. The Jamaican Maroons' experience in Nova Scotia is an example of the very insecure rights of African British subjects in the late 18th century Atlantic world. And their strength and resilience to oppression remain a lasting legacy in the province. Although most Maroons left Nova Scotia for Sierra Leone in 1800, some did stay. In our community to this day. So on behalf of the Government of Canada and following the recommendation of the Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada, I am very proud to present this plaque, which we will unveil momentarily, as a symbol of recognition and celebration of the Jamaican Maroons' role in Canada's history. Je tiens à remercier les membres de la Commission des lieux et monuments historiques du Canada pour le travail qu'ils accomplissent avec tant de générosité, travail qui a conduit à cette désignation. I want to thank the members of the Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada for their hard work, which led to this designation. Je tiens également à remercier l'équipe de Parcs Canada pour son travail acharné et son dévouement et à raconter des histoires qui mettent en valeur l'histoire culturelle du Canada d'une nation à l'autre. The Government of Canada invites Canadians to be inspired and captivated by the stories of the people, places, and events that shaped our country. So thank you to Parks Canada. I invite Canadians to visit Parks Canada's places such as Kajimkujik National Park and National Historic Site, and Fort Anne and Port Royal National Historic Sites to discover more of our country's rich and varied history. There is an amazing array of places and stories like that of the Jamaican Maroons to be discovered. The Jamaican Maroons in Nova Scotia are an important part of our country's history, and today's historical designation is a reminder to maintain our connection to our heritage. Thank you, and je vous remercie. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Ms. Metledge-Diab. And on your programs, there's a smaller version of this depiction of what it would have been like to build and how Citadel Hill was built by the Jamaican Maroons, which is really quite incredible if you look at that and think about what that would have been like for them to build this. This is the monument we're standing on now, but it's so important to have the black plaque to commemorate it as well. I mentioned the Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada a few minutes ago. Russell Gross is the Nova Scotia representative on that, and I'd like to welcome him in that capacity and in his role as the Executive Director of the Black Cultural Centre for Nova Scotia. Mr. Gross, thank you for the work that you've done to bring us to this moment.
Bonjour, hello, Kwe, distinguished guests, stakeholders, colleagues, family, friends. It's a privilege for me to join you here this morning as a Nova Scotia representative of the Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada. Today, I would say, is a day of great importance and reflection as we remember the lasting effects of enslavement and the importance of being emancipated. As a proud African Nova Scotian and Executive Director of the Black Cultural Centre, I'm encouraged by today as we reflect on our past and the business of slavery while commemorating the Jamaican Maroons, who had a remarkable impact on our shores here in Nova Scotia. Since its inception, the Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada has commemorated important people and events that tell our stories and celebrate Canada's rich history. This has also been a great mechanism to educate and inform the unknown and untold parts of Black history. Historic commemoration act as a discussion starter, a nudge for the curious to learn more. In these past few years, the Historic Sites and Monuments Board has added awareness of our unique culture by commemorating historic icons such as Richard Preston, William Hall, No. 2 Construction Battalion, the community of Africville, Viola Desmond, most recently George Dixon, to name a few. Most recently, the commemoration of Olivier Dejeune, Canada's first reported enslaved person in 1692 in Quebec, was held. Commemoration was also held of the national historic significance of Black migrations to Sierra Leone that happened out of this province from 1792 and 1800. And earlier this week, on Sunday, Emancipation Day was commemorated at a national. Today we gather to commemorate the Jamaican Maroons. The story of the Jamaican Maroons exemplifies the hardships of many Black settlers and what we here in this province, and the mighty spirit of perseverance. No remarkable history and heritage that is steeped in traditions and a spirit of determination when faced with the harshest situations. Today we recognize to share my sincere appreciation to the Parks Canada staff to share and tell our stories, the stories of Black Canadians across the country, and their willingness to work closely with the community. Today's series we also remember slavery and we commemorate the Jamaican Maroon. Possible without the coming together of several partners and levels of government that were working closely with the Black Cultural Centre for Nova Scotia. Thank you to the province of Nova Scotia, the Halifax Regional Municipality, Parks Canada, Museum of Immigration at Pier 21, the Jamaican Cultural Association of Nova Scotia, the Office of African Nova Scotian Affairs, the HRM, African Nova Scotian Affairs Integration Office, and Eastland Community TV for making today a monumental and special day. Let's give them a hand. We also owe a great debt of appreciation to Senator Bernard for your leadership in seeing that Emancipation Day is recognized, not only here in Nova Scotia, but across our country. Thank you to the Planning Committee that worked collectively to ensure that we had a day of events today that will recognize a part of our history that deserves recognition. In closing, I encourage you to discover more about Black history in Canada, our shared history, and consider visiting the Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada website and submit some ideas for nominations so that we can keep this momentum moving of sharing our history. Thank you. Merci. Walalan.
Thanks very much, Russell. And there's another Emancipation Day event coming up. It's tomorrow in Amherst. They're going to be unveiling a monument to the No. 2 Battalion there, and there will also be a play that involves some of the descendants of the No. 2 Battalion as well. As we talk about the Jamaican Maroons this morning, and you hinted at this, Russell, it opens a door to finding out more. Dr. Afua Cooper is here to share some of that story in her role, one of her many roles as a well-known historian and author. Dr. Cooper, welcome. Honored to have you here.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming out, distinguished guests. I'm happy to see everyone, but especially the younger people in the audience. I'm here as a historian of Black Canadian history and also the history of the African diaspora. But I think the main hat that I'm wearing here this morning is that of the person who nominated the Trelawney Town Maroons to Parks Canada and subsequently to Historic Sites and Monument Board to be recognized as persons of national historic significance. Thank you very much. And as we went through the nomination process, I was told, and I'll give you the name later, that it should be an event, the arrival of the Maroons in July 1796, as an event of national historic significance. All this came about because I love to walk, and I love to walk on the Halifax waterfront. It's one of my favorite places in the province and in the city. And as I walked on the waterfront, I looked at all the monuments. Every single plaque, even if it's in the ground, I'm going to stop and read that plaque. And I realized there was not a plaque, not a monument, not anything for the Black people, for the Black history. Now, as one who I'm very much aware, I teach this in my courses, that this waterfront here witnessed the comings and goings of many groups of African people. Enslaved people who came from the Caribbean, from the United States, the Black loyalists who came, and a big portion of them left in 1792, the refugees of the War of 1812 who arrived between 1813, arrived at the waterfront. You know where the wave is behind the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic? That's the King's Wharf. That's the King's Wharf. And that was the place people, where the ships would dock and people disembark or embark. And so it really is, I take my students up to Citadel Hill, was a small exhibit. It's now been exhibited on the Maroons, and I urge people to look at this drawing that was commissioned by the Parks Canada, the Army Museum, to commemorate the Maroons. So then I wrote a piece to the code. It's online, you can read it, Monuments for the Maroons. And then I wrote to and I said, Keith, I want to do this letter to commemorate the Maroons because I had done a year prior. And Keith said, okay, here's how we write the letter. There's a way you write the letter. And I did that, sent it off. This was in 2018. Sort of forgot about it. Then I heard back from Parks and Historic Sites and Monuments. And during the COVID years, I received a letter, hey, it's been accepted. The plaque is going to be unveiled for the Maroons. So I'm so overjoyed that this has happened. The Jamaican Trelawney Maroons, and they were not slaves, they were free people. They had fought the British twice. Between 1795 and 1796 was the Second War, because these are free people living in a slave colony. So the British intention was to subjugate slavery. And the various communities across the island said no. Something happened, the war precipitated, the Trelawney Town Maroons laid guns, the truce happened, they them, and they were deported, members of that community, most of them, not all, to Nova Scotia. And I want to salute the women in, because we always talk about the men. They did build the Citadel Fortress, Queenpool Road, Octorlony Road, etc., etc., etc. But most of the people on that ship were females. Because when the women heard that their sons, their husbands, their cousins were going to be deported, they're like, no. So that tells you how close-knit they were. So they went with the men, and they took their children. They did not want their communities to be broken up. So I salute the women as well as I salute the men. I think of the war captain, Leonard Parkinson. The Maroons were this diasporic group, left from Jamaica, deported to Nova Scotia, went to Sierra Leone. And I hope there are Sierra Leonean people. I see someone waving in the crowd, because we have to recognize that Sierra Leone provided another refuge for the Maroons. And if you go to Freetown, Sierra Leone, right now in the downtown square, as I've been, you will see some of the monuments that the Maroons have left behind. They were an 18th century black diasporic liberation group, a fighter group, and they made their marks in 3 countries. They represented an early African-descended group that contested the boundaries of slavery, freedom, empire, and colonialism. They were also one of history's first anti-racist collectives and articulated a vision of autonomy and human rights for all. And the Maroons, when they came, one of the reasons we admire them, and we salute Emancipation Day today, but one of the reasons why we admire them is that not only were they free people in their bodies, but they were also free in their minds, because they refused to bow down to the white oppression here in Nova Scotia. So they embodied that final struggle. Emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Because none of us but ourselves can free our minds. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Cooper. An important part of historic commemorations is the kind of research and background and advocacy that you bring, and along with you, Dr. Cooper, historian Rosemary Sadler also played an important role in this process and had hoped to join us today but was not able to. But she did share a note in which she says, "I'm delighted that my 22 years of advocacy resulted in the national recognition of August 1st as Emancipation Day, passed in March of 2021 on a motion by MP Majid Jawari, and further delighted that my initiative to have national recognition for the Jamaican Maroons has passed as well. Freedom in Canada for the Maroons was not without challenges, and many, once the building of the magnificent Citadel and Government House was completed, opted to leave, as Dr. Cooper said, for Sierra Leone. And with this commemoration of Emancipation Day, we honor the many who have gone before to pave a way for our freedom." The words and sentiments of Dr. Rosemary Sadler, author, historian, and consultant, who wanted to be here and is, in a sense, in spirit. The presence of the Jamaican community is still vibrant, as we know, in this province, and I'd like to welcome Ms. Olive Phillips of the Jamaican Cultural Association of Nova Scotia to come forward to deliver that perspective and some remarks. Please welcome her.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure to look at your smiling faces, to know how significant today is. Many have been welcomed and acknowledged. His Excellency, many members of Parliament, Honorable Houston, Minister Twilo, His Excellency, Mr. BCC, Ms. Metled, and of course, Honorable, our special guest from Ottawa, the Jamaican High Commissioner, Marsha. Okay, I'm going to actually talk about you before. But I just wanted to, I got so excited, I wanted to welcome everyone and not leave anyone out. And before I even go on, I have to remember the work that was done by the committee led by Russell Gross, and of course, members of Pier 21, the Jamaicans Cultural Association, Augie Jones and Tracy Thomas from ANSA, and other members who took part in the planning. Okay, on behalf of the Jamaican Cultural Association of Nova Scotia, JCANS, We welcome everyone present here today for this unique historical celebration. We're thrilled to be participating in this plaque mounting celebration to honor the special historical status bestowed by the Canadian federal government on the Jamaican Trelawney Maroons who came to Nova Scotia in 1796. This recognition has been a long time coming, and we're very glad it's finally here. We're grateful to have in our midst Her Excellency Marsha Kaur Loban, Jamaica's High Commissioner North to Ottawa. And Excellency, we thank you for coming. We know you'll never be the same after you've been exposed to the charm of Nova Scotia. The Jamaican Cultural Association, JCANS, is a not-for-profit organization incorporated in Nova Scotia in March of 2013, and we recently celebrated our 11th year anniversary. Our goal is to inspire, uplift, educate, and share our Jamaican and Caribbean culture and history with everyone we meet. We focus on establishing goals to integrate our people into Nova Scotian society, to create a sense of belonging, emphasizing inclusivity and diversity while using education as a tool to create awareness of our shared common history and culture. In the recent past, JCANS had the pleasure of collaborating with Mr. Dan Conlon, curator of Pier 21 Museum, and his team to research a historical connection between Jamaica and the Trelawney Maroons. The end product is a beautiful exhibit called The Jamaican Nova Scotian Connection from the Maroons to the Present, and I hope you have a chance to see it and watch that video. Looking back over the historical past, we now view the Maroons as positive icons. Many speak of the impact of the legacy they left behind since arriving in Nova Scotia over 400 years ago. They fought in hospitable conditions and overcame great odds, but they survived. Their indomitable spirit and resilience in the face of adversity still inspire us today. We hope the younger generation will learn how to strive, to overcome, and not to yield when faced with life's greatest challenges, to become victors, not victims in our society. And we give thanks to that legacy left behind by the Maroons.
Thanks so kindly, Ms. Phillips. And on mention of Pier 21 and the Canadian Immigration Museum of Pier 21, just a reminder that the exhibit opened yesterday at Pier 21, the slavery exhibit, History Exposed, which Dr. Cooper and the Black Cultural Center have had a huge hand in. Now to welcome the High Commissioner for Jamaica, Marsha Kaur Laban. She's here to bring some of her remarks to us too. Are you charmed by us yet?
Thank you. And forgive me, having served in government for however long, I know we need to rush through the program, but it would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the officials. The Honorable Arthur LeBlanc and Mrs. LeBlanc, Honorable Tim Houston, the Honorable Twila Gross, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your names, the Honorable Lena Metlich, and other government officials, including Senator Wanda Thomas, and I know I saw a senator from Quebec here today. His Worship Mike Savage, Mr. Russell Gross, Ms. Olive Phillips, Dr. Afufa Cooper, Dr. Marjorie Lewis, and other distinguished guests, including the former Lieutenant Governor and other members of government and members of the Jamaican diaspora. I have to pick up my diaspora. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, good morning, bonjour. It is my distinct honor and privilege to represent the government and people of Jamaica on this significant occasion as the government and people of Nova Scotia, and by extension, the government of Canada, commemorate one of the most monumental milestones in history, Emancipation Day. Recalling the struggles for emancipation, we are reminded of the seminal role, ingenuity, perseverance, courage, and vision played in uniting our African ancestors in the call to freedom and to stand up against injustice. With pride and admiration, we give due recognition to these strong and bold ancestors who fought and sacrificed their lives to win their freedom from enslavement almost 2 centuries ago, leaving behind a rich legacy and an indelible mark upon which successive generations thereafter have been able to build on. It is also with heartfelt pride that I stand here on Citadel Hill to witness the historic unveiling of the HSMBC plaque in recognition and honor of the invaluable contribution of the Jamaican Maroons to the development of Nova Scotia. From the rich history and legacy they left behind in Jamaica to being sent away, deported to Nova Scotia, where their contribution to the early development of this beautiful province have been interwoven into the rich and diverse multicultural tapestry that makes the community in which you live unique and exciting. In Halifax, with the refortification of Citadel Hill, and we heard of Government House and other structures, Citadel Hill where we stand today, and other structures such as the Governor's House and others, to Preston, which later became known as Maroon Town, and Boydville, later called Maroon Hill. The Maroons demonstrated their skill and agility in several areas, including agriculture and construction. Though the experience of the Maroon settlement in Nova Scotia was brief and lasted only 4 years from 1796 to 1800, as many left for Sierra Leone, their legacy remains one of a proud, defiant, and resilient group who survived the uncertainties and cruelties of the transatlantic slave route, chattel slavery, freedom, deportation, frigid temperatures, and later resettlement back on the African continent. We will all recall Marcus Garvey's famous quote, "A people without knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots." Knowing and understanding our history is indeed vital. That is what grounds each successive generation and helps to shape our perspectives, allowing for a deeper appreciation of the struggles and the triumphs of those who went before us and the shoulders upon which we now stand. By acknowledging the contributions of our ancestors, including the Jamaican Maroons and other groups that contributed to the early development of our respective communities and nations, we not only honor their memory, but we are also educating and building awareness among current and future generations about the importance of diversity, resilience, community, and the wider process of nation building. It is imperative in this regard that due recognition be given to those unsung heroes within our communities who tirelessly and continually undertake comprehensive research, advocate, and lobby for these important aspects of our history to be recognized and honored publicly. On this occasion, I salute the unrelenting efforts of persons such as Dr. Afukupo, Russell Gross, Olive Phillips, Dr. David Hall, and Lorna Hill, and other members of JCAN, among others. Their dedication to preserving and promoting our shared history ensures that the stories, such as of the Jamaican Maroons, are not forgotten but celebrated and remembered. I also salute the Canadian government and Parks Canada, the mayors and the senators, as well as the other offices and local organizations which are instrumental to these important aspects of Canada's history. This plaque will further cement the official recognition given by the Government of Canada in 2022 to the contribution of Jamaican Maroons. Allowing for even greater awareness building among citizens and visitors to Nova Scotia. As this plaque is unveiled, let us reflect on the importance of knowing our nation. Let us continue to honor those who have paved the way for us, and let us collectively strive to build on that legacy, defending and promoting, among other things, justice and equality for all, for the benefit and betterment of generations to come. I thank you. Happy Emancipation Day.
Jamaican High Commissioner Marshakur Loban, thanks for urging us to continue the struggle, the fight, and to feel inspiration along the way based on our ancestors and those who've worked so hard, as you say, to bring knowledge about the history that we're commemorating today and to lead us to this moment in the program where we're going to unveil the plaque. Ms. Alana Phillips is Parks Canada's superintendent for mainland Nova Scotia's field unit, and she's here with us. Hello, and a lot heard and said about the plaque today, but we don't know exactly what it's going to say, and Alana is going to tell us. Welcome to you.
Thank you all so much for being here together today. It's a really special day, and we're so happy to be hosting here at the Halifax Citadel National Historic Site. So, momentarily, we are going to unveil this plaque. I must tell you, it is not the actual plaque that will be installed at the Citadel. It is a mock-up, because the actual plaque is way too heavy for any kind of stand. So when you see it, just know that it's not the actual one that will be installed. So I'm going to read the text from the plaque, and then I'm going to ask some of the members of the official party to help me unveil it. It reads, Jamaican Maroons in Nova Scotia. The Maroons of Trelawney Town, formerly enslaved people of African ancestry and their descendants, lived in the Cockpit Country region of Jamaica. After the Maroon War, 1795 to 1796, the British colony exiled more than 500 of them to Nova Scotia. Here, they maintained a strong sense of community while facing pressures to assimilate and demands for their labor, including at the Citadel. For years, they petitioned for the freedom to leave when Britain arranged their resettlement inside for the African Nova Scotian community. And now I'm going to read it in French. Les Marrons de la Jamaïque en Nouvelle-Écosse, gens d'origine africaine autrefois soumis à l'esclavage et leurs descendants, les Marrons de Trelawney vivent dans la région de Cockpit Country en Jamaïque. Après la guerre des Marrons, 1795 à 1796, plus de 500 d'entre eux ont exilé vers la Nouvelle-Écosse, où ils gardent un sens de la communauté. Les pressions pour s'assimiler et les requêtes pour leur travail, y compris à la Citadel, abondent. Pendant des années, ils réclament le droit de partir. La Grande-Bretagne coordonne leur réinstallation en Sierra Leone en 1800, mais certains restent. Leur résilience et leur persévérance font la fierté de la communauté africaine néo-écossaise. Merci. So I will now ask those who are joining me to unveil the plaque to please join right up here. Russell and please join.
you.